Family of popular influencer Jordan Peterson is speaking out about his health in a brand new video update. For people who do not know the situation with Jordan, apparently he's been quite sick for quite some time. Now, anybody who's following his work will have known this. There has been a lot of up and downs with Dr. Peterson's health in the past years, but now this has culminated to a pretty critical point as per the family. In this stream, we're going to watch this brand new video update from his daughter, Michaela Peterson, detailing just how scary this latest brush with health has been. We also have an interview with her on Piers Morgan to discuss further. And I'm going to take you through all the details of his health in the past 5 years just to bring us up to speed and really give context as to just how much Jordan Peterson has been through in the past stretch. We're also going to take a look at the brand new story about Drake losing his lawsuit and having it completely thrown out of court by Universal Music. So make sure to smash that like button as we jump into this stream. Lots of stories to unpack. And real quick, if you've been enjoying what you've been seeing on this channel, if you're liking the content and the daily live streams, consider hitting the membership button down below to become a member. You will get early access to the stream topics, early access to hear who I'm going to interview and the opportunity to ask them questions, plus an entire back catalog of members-only videos. So go and check that out. Become a channel member to support Cassius Morris Official. So without further ado, let's hop into this first clip. So as I mentioned, this is Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, with the first initial update about how his health has been. Let's take a listen.
Hey guys, I have an update on my dad. I'm actually just going to read this. It's on my teleprompter because this is too hard to explain off the cuff, so I wrote it out. This summer has been exceedingly difficult. Dad was in an ICU suffering from pneumonia and sepsis after dealing with a host of neurological issues this summer that we believe stem from SIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome due to decades of mold exposure. We don't have a better explanation for his neurological symptoms at the moment other than spiritual attacks. He's been suffering for the last number of years with unexplainable neuropathy and weakness amongst other symptoms, but they worsened this summer after he cleaned out his parents' basement after his dad, my grandpa, passed away. We weren't able to communicate with Dad really all of September. During the end of the pneumonia, he was diagnosed with critical illness polyneuropathy, which we're hoping is critical illness myopathy, which is bad enough. That's been heartbreaking and brutal on top of everything else. But after almost a month in the ICU, he's been moved out to a less urgent floor.
A month in the ICU, guys. That is incredibly serious. Like, this is no brush with health. You know, this is a very serious condition here happening with Jordan Peterson. So definitely upsetting, definitely concerning. Let's listen a little bit more.
Praise God for that. We're still in the midst of this, but now we're seeing improvements daily. The timeline for his full recovery is hard to tell at the moment, and I'll update everyone when we have more information. My family's asking for prayers. Like I said, this summer's been exceedingly difficult and terrifying. Dad's condition is complicated by the fact he can't take most medications without suffering from severe paradoxical reactions, which limits treatment options. Like I mentioned, I believe there's a spiritual element at play here. I think a lot of people have felt it in the last few weeks and months. It's been hitting my dad and my family hard this summer. In August, the day Dad was brought to a hospital by ambulance, my newborn Audrey was also brought to a hospital by ambulance within hours of each other. It was unbelievable. This was the second time this summer we had brought Audrey to the hospital after she almost died from near heart failure at 6 weeks old. That is exceedingly rare, and they couldn't find a cause for. She was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary hypertension, which seems to have resolved, praise God. But it's not something that happens. You know, this was late July after Dad and I recorded some episodes of the call-in show together. Everything went just really downhill fast after that. Every single day this summer and now fall has been like watching a movie. Our family's relying heavily on the Lord through this and seeing miracles around us. We are. And I'm also aware that God uses everything for good. So eventually we'll see why this is happening or what comes of it. But Mom and I in particular really wanted to reach out and ask for prayers to help everyone get through this, especially for my dad and for my mom, but also for the nurses and doctors taking care of him, my brother, and family and friends who have come to support us. I miss my dad. My brother misses his dad. My mom misses her best friend and husband.
Wow. It's terrible. It's a heartbreaking video, really. And see, it must be tough to be in a position where your family is under the spotlight with this type of situation happening. I was thinking the same thing with Ozzy Osbourne. You know, as much as Sharon was trying to put on a show of strength and go out there and put on his final concert, I mean, going through this all behind the scenes, even on its own, is incredibly strenuous and incredibly stressful for a family unit. But to have the responsibility of fans and, you know, people around the world asking for updates and wanting those updates about that person, that's got to add a whole other level of challenge to this. So I was thinking about that recently with Sharon and Ozzy, just how hard it must have been for the Osbournes to deal with this. This is a similar situation. So for anybody just joining, Dr. Jordan Peterson apparently just spent 1 month in the intensive care unit with a litany of different conditions that they're trying to figure out exactly what it is, to the point where it affected his speech. So his family's saying, look, we haven't been able to talk to Jordan Peterson in full conversations and full sentences since this happened. So we're going to have some more context here. Let's just finish the clip of Michaela speaking on this. Guess she had to take a second.
Well, he's hopefully recovering. And like I said, I'll keep people updated. He has a team of people, including myself, continuing his mission, including Peterson Academy, and will be releasing his We Who Wrestle with God tour to everyone on YouTube, which he's wanted to do for a long time. And given we think there's a spiritual element at play here, we believe the right way to fight back is to keep going and push harder, if anything. Life isn't necessarily supposed to get easier when you're doing the right thing, and I can see God's hand throughout this, but it's a lot to handle. My family agreed or wanted to delay updating everybody because a lot has happened over the last few months, and we were hoping he would recover faster and we would see bigger improvements sooner and have better news. And it was really a near-death experience for a long time. So we've been just dealing with this one day at a time. We still are. It's been overwhelming, but it looks like, and we're praying that things are headed in the right direction. He's out of the ICU. So that's the main thing. He's out of the ICU. Like I said, praise God for that. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you to everybody who's reached out. I'll be back on YouTube maybe in the next month or so, depending on how things go. Yeah, that's the update. Thanks, guys.
Jordan Peterson's daughter with an update on his health, claiming that the acclaimed influencer had suffered what she describes as a near-death experience for the last couple of months. So guys, this is incredibly serious as an update. We're hearing that Jordan Peterson was in the ICU. We're hearing that he's unable to speak and communicate with his own family. We're hearing that it was near potentially the end of his life. Now, I didn't want to jump in through that clip and, make a bunch of commentary. It almost felt kind of inappropriate to be jumping in and, trying to add my own 2 cents to that clip as she's talking about her dad being so sick. But it's a terrible thing, and me personally, I didn't know the extent of Jordan Peterson's health problems. I knew that he was going through a lot of different things, and I knew their family was going through a lot. Not exactly because I knew the details, but just because of the way that Jordan was also presenting himself on camera. And again, this isn't a criticism, this is just an analysis of where I felt he was at. I think the hyper emotional state of Jordan Peterson was like a sort of a giveaway that there was something happening behind the scenes. And again, not to criticize or kick a guy when he's down, but every time I saw him doing an interview, he would be emotional, he would be crying, he would be moved by the slightest thing. And I remember thinking, this guy's got to be going through a lot behind the scenes. He's just crying constantly. There's obviously something going on. Now, the other thing, too, about a guy like Jordan Peterson, which I think kind of makes a lot of sense, is this is a dude who has very big emotions and who thinks very deeply about the state of the world. And I think he's very much affected by a lot of these issues that he treats, because again, you'll see him tear up just when he speaks on the patients he talks to, when he speaks on the young men who've come up to him, said that he's changed their lives, of which there are many. I mean, the guy has a lot of fans. When he speaks on these issues happening, it moves him a lot. And I would imagine that he's so invested in his work, again, pure speculation here, but it appears that he's so invested that I would not have trouble believing some of these things would keep him up at night. Some of these issues would really make him sick, because I think a lot of us are at that point as well. I've been there on certain days where the world just seems so messed up that I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what the next move is supposed to be or where we're really going with this. That can be a really disheartening feeling, and that can be a really heavy feeling that can actually make you physically sick. I'm not sharing anything you guys don't know. We know stress can make you sick. But I would imagine that when you're in the thick of it, like Jordan Peterson, not only dealing with these issues head on, but also dealing with the pressure and the scrutiny of being successful in the field he's in, being a guy who's controversial and who receives a lot of hate online. There's a lot of people who are rejoicing right now at the fact that Jordan Peterson is sick. I'm seeing it in the chat even, he won't be missed, this and that. So none of this additional stress can really be helping a guy when he's sick like this. And I would imagine that it is affecting him a lot and probably adding to it quite a bit. Now, on top of that, for context, we have some details here as to what the health challenges of Jordan Peterson have been actually leading up to this. Like I said, this is a guy who's had many, many health problems. This is not the beginning of the health problems that Jordan Peterson has had. So let's take a look at some details about what he's been going through. So the initial start of the Jordan Peterson health crisis began at the end of 2019 leading into 2020, where Jordan Peterson, as per this report here, began experiencing, quote, severe health issues related to benzodiazepine withdrawal, which he had been prescribed for anxiety. Now, Jordan Peterson was quite open about this. He was prescribed benzos, as many people are, medications like lorazepam or, all those sorts of medications that people would commonly use for anxiety, depression. Those are all benzodiazepine drugs. So very commonly used, but the only problem with that is that these drugs are incredibly dangerous, as I talked about yesterday on the show when we were looking at Theo Vaughn, or the other day. So on top of these drugs being dangerous, they actually leave an imprint on your brain and can change the physiology of your brain. They can actually change the chemical balance of your brain moving forward and create other issues. So, again, I feel like it's a common misnomer that these drugs are safe just because they're very often prescribed. But it says here his condition deteriorated to the point where he was placed in a medically induced coma in Russia in early 2020 to manage withdrawal symptoms. That's insane, dude. And how do you get, again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm wearing a lab coat. But how do you get to the point where you're so addicted to drugs like that if you're taking them as prescribed? I mean, typically people, when they're taking a prescription of, again, a lorazepam or maybe even I don't want to say Xanax because I feel like people get more commonly addicted to Xanax. So maybe that's, out of bounds here for an example. But most of the time when people take these drugs, I would imagine they don't go into serious addiction or even addiction at all. if you're taking it as prescribed. So, again, pure speculation. I wasn't in the room when he's taking his pills. Maybe there was some adjusting the dosages going on. Because people can get like a sneaky addiction with something. They can take half a pill. Maybe the next night they want to take a full pill. Maybe the next night they want to take a pill and a half. And it can kind of go down a slippery slope. It's a really weird thing with the prescription medications. Not speaking from personal experience, but I've known people who've had issues. Working with comedians, working with entertainers, I probably know more people hooked on prescription drugs than not. So this stuff is very, very scary. So I would imagine there's probably some of that going on. Okay. So he's addicted to benzos. He's withdrawing from benzos in mid-2020, early 2020. He has to be placed in a medically induced coma to manage the withdrawal symptoms. Reports claim that following this, he spent several weeks in the ICU. So he was already in the ICU. This guy's been in and out of the ICU since 2019. So he was in the ICU for several weeks in intensive care and subsequently contracted COVID-19 during his recovery from the benzos. So while he's in Russia trying to recover, trying to get on the mend, he catches Russian COVID while in the hospital. So this was said to have a really big impact on his health as well, and just continued the downward spiral of Jordan Peterson, continued the downward spiral that he was going through. He returned to Canada later that year, though his health remained fragile. Okay, so that was 2019, 2020. Now, we did see Peterson make a pretty good comeback after that. I mean, I feel like he was doing quite well. Through the early 2020s, we saw him active. We saw him doing podcasts. We saw him doing speaking engagements. So he was pretty good around that time. Now, 2025 at the beginning, actually near the end. So this is now what he's going through here is when it started to get rocky in 2025 in August. So in August 2025, Peterson's daughter Michaela, who we just saw speaking on this, revealed that he'd been diagnosed with chronic inflammatory response syndrome, also known as CIRS, a condition triggered by mold exposure. Michaela Peterson explained that his immune system was unable to detoxify mold and bacterial toxins due to a genetic predisposition. This diagnosis followed his exposure to a moldy environment while cleaning out his late father's basement earlier that year. So that is what she was mentioning, that he, I guess, cleaned out his father's basement after he died and he got really, really sick. But, how does that work? It says the condition led to severe neurological symptoms, including cognitive difficulties and hypersensitivity to food and medications. Wow, so it's been quite a saga for Jordan Peterson since 2019. The only thing is, though, it just, and you guys tell me if you think I'm wrong or if I'm over-exaggerating, but it feels like there's a lot of inconsistencies in this story. Do you guys feel like this makes sense? Because, again, people are saying it's all speculation. I'm not a doctor here. I'm not a doctor. But becoming so severely addicted to benzos that they have to actually put you in a coma to get you off of them, that doesn't sound like a regular prescription. So that does not sound like a guy who was prescribed medication for anxiety. If that's the case, then everybody taking them would be addicted and withdrawing. If you take, a 0.05 of lorazepam as prescribed, you're not going to be addicted to the point where you withdraw so bad that you nearly die. That's not how these medications work. So that much I do know. The second thing is, okay, you clean a basement that has mold in it. How is that going to create such a serious reaction to the point where it's continued for months and months? And let me be very, very crystal clear here. I'm not trying to downplay what Jordan Peterson is going through. I'm really, really not. I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm not trying to take away from what he's been through. But the funny thing is that we're talking about scenarios that I've been through. So me, for example, when I was living with family as a teenager, we actually had to move out of a house because the house became infested with mold inside the walls. So we didn't know there was mold in the house. It was completely infested. It got to the point where we could really detect that something was wrong. By the time we broke down the wall to look inside, the entire basement was completely infested with mold. So we had to put the house on the market and sell the house and leave because the landlord wouldn't fix it. The guy, hold on a second. We didn't put it on the market because it was a landlord. We had to make arrangements to get another place to live. So at that point, we're waiting, we're trying to find a place, but we're still living in the moldy environment. So just explain to me for 2 seconds again. This is a genuine question, not a rhetorical one. How can people live in conditions like that? Because many people have, and many people do, sadly live in moldy buildings or moldy rooms. How can you live in somewhere like that and not develop these symptoms? But cleaning a basement with mold in it is going to send you to the intensive care? It's just not really adding up to me. And again, I don't mean to sound callous. I don't mean to sound cold. The reason I'm saying this, folks, is because it sounds like a lot of what's happening here with Jordan Peterson could be psychosomatic. It sounds like a lot of it is mental stress. You know, we hear this family who was obviously in distress trying to pin it on every single thing that they can find. Maybe the guy's just really stressed out. I mean, they're saying it could be a spiritual attack. I mean, I have a pretty strong feeling that it's not. What do you think? Somebody has a Jordan Peterson voodoo doll and they're casting spells? I think the much more likely and plausible scenario would be that he's just incredibly stressed and probably has some immune system stuff going on and he's sick. So it's horrible. You know, and again, I feel compassion for the family. I know that they're grasping at straws trying to make sense of this. And I know what it's like when somebody in your family can be sick for a long time. You start grasping at straws. You start trying to explain it away or rationalize it in any way that you can. But something's not adding up here. We do have another media clip of Michaela Peterson on Piers. She went on Piers today to speak about this and do an interview. So let's roll the clip and hopefully get some more insight as to what is happening here in this scenario. Shout out to the chat, by the way. I see everybody here. I see SN. I see Our America, Kristen, Sean, Jodo. For anybody just joining, Dr. Jordan Peterson, we just got the update that he is in incredibly poor health. His daughter claims that he had a near-death experience that they cannot explain. We just went through his health track record here a couple of minutes ago. So if you missed that part of the stream, you can go back and watch it later. But we will get some more context right here, right now, as to what's happening. But it looks like Michaela's going to be blaming it on demonic elements. Again, I don't get that. Maybe I'm not religious enough. But I'm not religious to the point where I believe that. I see in the chat, Ori pissed off the wrong people. Priscilla, that's it. Look, that's a lot more likely than spiritual attacks. I'll give you that.
Some of your posts on X in the last couple of days that your father, Jordan, a regular guest on this show, has been so seriously ill. First of all, please, accept my deepest condolences for his condition. Second, what is his current condition and how is he doing?
So he was diagnosed with CIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome, a couple of years ago. That syndrome is usually brought on by mold exposure. The house that I grew up in Toronto was really badly exposed to black mold and whatever else in the basement. And that circulated through the HVACs, and we were all kind of ill. Well, extremely ill, not kind of ill, extremely ill. And then we managed to put a lot of those symptoms into remission with dietary changes. But a couple of years ago when I moved to Miami, I got sick again, even on the diet. And I've been only eating meat for 8 years to like mitigate these symptoms. And I got sick on the diet, and we figured out it was from mold exposure. So my dad and I have a lot of similar symptoms, and we figured out his kind of neurological symptoms, a lot of like pain and neuropathy, and a propensity towards anxiety, things like that, were potentially caused by mold exposure. And there's a host of blood work you can do. It's scientifically rigorous compared to dietary intervention. And over the last year, he never did the SIRS treatment like I did because he was off busy changing the world. So around Christmas, he went back to my childhood house, and after about 2 weeks, he wasn't able to walk. It kind of happened out of the blue. He was fine. He recorded a course for Peterson Academy, flew back to Toronto, and in 2 weeks, he couldn't walk.
Wow. So fast progression. Now, my only question for my chat, and you guys tell me if you're thinking the same thing. Dr. Jordan Peterson, not a poor man. You know what I mean? Like, not Elon Musk, but definitely not lacking money. Why are we going back to that house if it made you sick? Like, I'm trying my best to just be compassionate and just embrace the family and be like, the story adds up. I'm sending my best. I'm trying hard not to be cynical. But what's with these inconsistencies? You're telling me that you're in a house that had black mold. Fair enough. It can make you sick. I'm not denying that, but you're worth millions of dollars. You can't rent a place for a month. You can't hire someone to go and clean. Again, I'm not questioning that this is the story. I'm just wondering why it's being handled this way. You can't just hire a mover to go and get the stuff in the moldy basement and just not go in the house. If it made you that sick, why go back in the first place? This is what I want to know. Maybe she'll tell us. Maybe she'll explain.
Flew him back to Arizona, where I've set up a house that has proper air filtration, and he kind of recovered and then went on tour. And then this summer, so this has been really, like, his severe health problems have really been going on since June. And he had a couple of mold exposures. And I know how that kind of sounds, but he stayed in this motel for a couple days that was musty, he told me. And I was like, you should get out of there. He got really sick after that, and he kind of deteriorated throughout the summer. And we didn't really know what was going on because it was so severe. It was like a lot of neuropathic pain, and it was mostly that. It was mostly pain and kind of slowness. And we brought him back to Arizona and tried to help him recover. And things just, I don't even know how to explain it, Pierce. Like, this summer has been so bad. When I put out the video on YouTube describing how he was sick, I said that there was a spiritual element. I think at the bottom of this, there's this mold exposure problem, but we have been walloped multiple times throughout the summer with hospitalizations and these weird illnesses. And in September, he ended up getting pneumonia and then sepsis, and then ended up with something that's called critical illness polyneuropathy or myopathy.
But see, what does this have to do with spiritual warfare, though? That's what I'm trying to figure out from Michaela Peterson. And look, I have nothing against Michaela Peterson. She seems like a fine young woman. She's well-read. She's a good speaker. I don't really have anything against any of the, Peterson family members, but like, with a straight face, you're actually trying to tell me that what? That demons casted spells on your family? And that's why people have been sick? And look, maybe I'm lacking compassion. Because again, when stuff starts happening in your life, I would imagine when you're facing hardships of that level, maybe your brain sort of flicks a switch and You start grasping at straws, grasping at reasoning, like, why is this happening to me? You know, nobody ever feels like it's going to happen to them, but it does happen to them. So when it happens to you, I'm sure that you start grasping at straws, but we're going on national television saying that what? Demons did what? And also, if demons are coming after Jordan Peterson, this isn't me saying it, it's his daughter, then why do all these other people who have hate and online people going after them and people preying on their downfall, why are those people fine? You know, Jordan Peterson, yes, he gets a lot of hate online. Yes, he has a lot of people pushing back against him, but he's certainly not the only one who has that. I mean, if spiritual warfare worked, Donald Trump wouldn't even be with us right now. How many people are preying on Trump's downfall? So it doesn't add up. Let me let her have her say.
Which is which can be a complication from pneumonia and sepsis. And it's just, we haven't been talking about it because we were hoping to see improvement faster. And every day has been like just movie level awful. And so now I put out the video because we're starting to see improvements. Instead of his health going like this, which it has it's been like 4 months, it's starting to go like this. So my family and I decided it was appropriate to put out a video, but we mostly just wanted to ask people for prayers because it's been, so this summer, if I can get into it a bit, I had a baby in May, and when she was 6 weeks old, she went into heart failure and turned blue in my bedroom. And so we brought her to the hospital and she was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary hypertension. They can't find anything wrong. She's fine now, which is a miracle, but she almost died. And this is my third kid. It's not like that's a normal thing to happen to kids. And then when my dad had to be hospitalized in August, he went to a hospital. I came back home after visiting him there. And that night, my baby was turned blue again for an unrelated issue. So I'd been to a hospital, and then I was heading to another hospital in an ambulance being like, what's going on? So I don't know. A lot of me thinks there's a huge spiritual element at play with like Dennis Prager being paralyzed and then Charlie Kirk. So I know that was a bit disjointed and everything, and I think mold is at the bottom of our...
See, my chat was telling me she's not saying it's demonic entities. Guys, that's exactly what she just said. And I see the timestamp. She's about to go on to explain it. She is flat out saying on national television, Dennis Prager, Charlie Kirk, her dad, there's spiritual warfare going on. Demonic elements. That's a direct quote.
Or like autoimmunity and psych issues that we've been dealing with for like, my entire life. But I think there's a large spiritual element at play too.
Wow.
I think a lot of people have been feeling that, in the last number of months.
I mean, that's an extraordinary thing you've just said. When you believe, what spiritual thing do you think could be going on?
Honestly, and I would have just scoffed at myself years ago for saying this, but there's this resurgence of Christianity. I don't know if you thought this was where we were going with this talk.
What does my chat think? Do you guys think this is demonic, or do you think it's just a health problem? Again, maybe I'm not religious enough to really buy into it, but I'm very open-minded. What do you guys think? I understand what it is. I'm not sure if that's the case.
Honestly, and I would have just scoffed at myself.
See, my chat agrees.
Years ago for saying this, but there's this resurgence of Christianity. I don't know if you thought this was where we were going with this talk, but there's been this huge resurgence of Christianity in America. And I think, and I believe that, and so I think there's a demonic element at play that's hitting people, to be perfectly blunt. Now, I also think mold is what's making us sick, but I don't know, something's going on in the world now. And I think a lot of people can feel it.
So a lot of people do seem to feel. I'm seeing, look, guys, I'm reading your chats. It's absolutely demonic. It's demonic. Tons of black magic. Both can be true. That's true. Both can be true. But again, so what's the explanation then? Let's say that demonic forces work and voodoo spells work and all that works. Why is Donald Trump okay every time? You know, it seems like every time someone tries to throw a wrench in Donald Trump's operation, he comes out the victor. Why are, you know, celebrities who were hated so much, why are they fine? Can you guys explain that to me? How do we decide who gets the demon and who doesn't get the demon? Is there, like, how do we reconcile that part?
You genuinely think this is the work of the devil?
You know what? It's too coincidental to not be. You know, I think it was C.S. Lewis that talked about synchronicities, and that's how you can kind of identify God by like too many coincidences. But throughout my entire life, I have seen that. But this summer has been brutal. Like, what are the chances of my dad being hospitalized and then my newborn being hospitalized for turning blue? It's not like I just randomly brought her to the hospital within a 3-hour time period randomly. Like, it's been too much. So that's where I'm at now, which is why I went on YouTube and asked for prayers. It's that because there's been no like definitive diagnosis other than SIRS, which is a legitimate problem and disease, but dad is getting hit so hard. And then with everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, although things seem to be turning around now. But
and have you had, Michaela, have you had moments when you thought you might lose him?
Oh, in the last month or two, yeah. We seem to be through that, but it's been really, 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 really scary.
For anybody just joining the stream, this is Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, breaking down the health issues that he's had in the past couple of months since August, going as far to say that he has been near death on multiple occasions since his initial diagnosis. Now, the family is blaming it on mold exposure, but also claiming there may be, quote, and I do quote, demonic elements at play that are attacking their family and attacking Jordan Peterson. I gotta say, guys, I'm not sure if I'm buying that, but this to me sounds like a classic case of rationalization. That's what it really sounds like. You know, what are the chances, she's asking, that something happens to her dad and her daughter on the same day? What are the chances? There has to be an explanation. You know, the truth is in this world that there's chances of a lot of things happening. And even if it's a 1% chance or a 0.05% chance, there's still a chance. That's really neither here nor there. We got to focus on what is.
I'm so sorry for what you've been going through. I had absolutely no idea I would have contacted you before this.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. We kept it under wraps.
Is he able to talk? Can you converse with him or?
Kind of. Like, yes, better than 10 days ago was brutal. Like, things just turned around. So now we can talk, but he's not recovered from the complications from the pneumonia and sepsis yet. So things are still, like I said, they're improving, but they're not fantastic.
Well, please send him our very best from everyone over here in the UK. I know he comes here a lot. He loves the UK. He's hugely popular here. I'm incredibly sorry to hear what's been going on with him, and I hope to speak with him before too long if he's strong enough to do that. And you know, our thoughts with you and all your family, Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Michaela Peterson appearing on the Piers Morgan show. I've never heard Piers, by the way, let a guest speak so much during an interview. He's always cutting people off, so definitely can see that he cares about Jordan Peterson. And, you know, I think that this whole health crisis is really showing just how much people do care about Jordan Peterson. Now, as I told you guys on the last couple of streams, I'm not a talk show viewer. I'm not even a YouTube viewer. I make content for a living, whether I'm on my channel or working for other channels. So my whole life is content. I don't have time to sit down and watch shows. But the one thing I try to keep track of is who's popular in the space and how people are reacting to them. And the one thing I've always noticed about Jordan Peterson is that the people who get it with him, they really love that guy. You know, I have friends who've been very much affected by Peterson. and the way that he puts ideas together and the way that he lays out concepts, I know people who that's really affected in a positive way. The other thing about Jordan Peterson is I don't think he was really as controversial as he was made out to be in the beginning. I feel like a lot of what he said was pretty well grounded in basic common sense. A lot of what he said wasn't even really that shocking in the beginning. Obviously, his positions have evolved over the years. But I think Peterson kind of got a bad rap at first as being some sort of fringe right-wing extremist, when I don't really believe he is any of that. I think he's just a very deep thinker with a lot of ideas, with the courage to go against the grain. One of the reasons also that he was really given not a fair shake and cast in that light is because he came out of Canada. So teaching in Canada, doing all the things he did in the different schools, I can tell you as a guy from Canada originally, when you're anybody who goes against the grain in any sense of the word, you are officially put in with the bad group of people, with the extreme group of people, the intolerant group of people. It's a really weird thing that happens in Canada because you can not even be saying anything extreme. You just simply maybe are questioning the way the establishment is going, or you're questioning the way things are operating with the status quo. But in Canada, the second you do that, you are pushed into the extremist category. And it's not even about the specific things that you're saying or your particular takes. It's just because the country is designed in such a way that people are expected to simply blindly follow. In Canada, you are expected to do what you're told, when you're told, and not to ask the questions about it. And we have the fake freedom of speech and freedom of democracy where people pretend that you can question it, or they pretend that everybody has their say. But watch what happens when you try to have your say in Canada. We have a real freedom of speech problem in this country, a really serious issue. So coming out of Canada, it kind of shaped the perspective around him, and he didn't really get a fair shake. But I do think he's a passionate guy. He's a guy who came out of the same town as me and decided to make it big, so I got respect for that. I do. In terms of what Michaela's saying, I think it might be too early for her to be doing television interviews. That's sort of my perspective on this. I say it with all due respect. She's obviously going through a lot right now. And I feel like the mind state you get in when you're dealing with health issues is similar to like when you lose somebody. It's almost similar to the grieving process. Not in the sense that you lost somebody, but there's a lot of weird misfiring that happens mentally when you're in that state. A lot of rationalizations, a lot of, seemingly, having epiphanies out of nowhere that may or may not be accurate. There's a lot that happens to a person when you're going through something like this. So I would say personally, I don't think she actually even needs to be on TV right now. And again, it goes back to the point in the beginning of this broadcast. None of this can help. The fame, the followers, the television appearances, the tweets, none of this is helpful right now, and none of this is going to positively affect the mental health of a person who's going through something like this. So ultimately, I would say the Peterson family should just go and deal with this. We've got the update. We know how he's doing now, and I think his fans can appreciate that. But we don't need television appearances. We don't need the live second-to-second update. I don't care how famous you are. Family business is family business. So I think that it should be kept private now. Now that we've had the update, I think they should go deal with it. Because I don't think this family I don't think they can really stand to look any wilder. Let's put it that way. I don't think they need to say any more wild takes. It's been a rough couple of years for the Peterson family. So I think they need to go relax and figure this out. What do you guys think down below in the chat? I see she's very concerned. Candace says, in Canada, you're also expected to preemptively apologize Oh, I think she was talking about something else there. Sorry, guys. The chat was moving pretty fast. She said, I mean, respectfully, as a Canadian student, if you're deemed too progressive, then you get ousted from your fellow student peers as well. Yeah, I could completely agree with that. It's tough to really have any views in Canada outside of the status quo. So sending good thoughts and good prayers to the Peterson family. Whatever the case may be, whether it's from celestial forces out in the universe or whether it's from mold exposure, at the end of the day, you can't wish this on anybody. You can't wish this on your worst enemy. And I would hope that Dr. Peterson gets well right away. I got a soft spot for people who think outside of the box. I got a soft spot for that. So sending lots of love, and hopefully we can connect with him coming up soon. If you guys are liking the stream, make sure to subscribe. I've been live every single day with topics on all different aspects of entertainment, from Joe Rogan to Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, Candace Owens, all the way to the world of music and rock and roll, hip hop. Make sure to subscribe for daily content here on Cassius Morris Official. We're going to hop over to the next story that's happening here. A music story coming out of the United States. It appears that rapper Drake has had his lawsuit thrown out of court. This, of course, is the defamation lawsuit that he had leveraged against Universal Music. And this really comes as a scathing loss for Drake. A loss that appears to be sort of mounting on itself after the initial loss of the rap battle. Popular consensus was that Drake lost that battle with Kendrick Lamar. A lot of people had questions about the way he was handling that loss and the way he was sort of playing his cards after that. Then he shocked the world by launching a defamation lawsuit against Universal Music Group. Now, this lawsuit was not directly aimed at Kendrick Lamar, but that's the way it was perceived in the media. And for anybody who missed the lawsuit details, here's a little bit of context. So the track that came out, of course, by Kendrick Lamar, called Not Like Us, was specifically aimed at the allegation that Drake is a pedophile. That is what the song is about. Context for anybody who hasn't heard it. I don't know how people haven't heard it at this point, but I'm sure somebody hasn't. And it's been basically dubbed the PDF anthem, okay? Everybody's been singing this song. Kendrick had people in every club in the world singing, calling this dude a pedophile. Drake decided to sue Universal for defamation for pushing this song because he claimed that Universal Music was using fake comments, fake Spotify streams, and fake algorithm pushes to blow this song up and defame him. So when you look at it in that light, it's pretty solid grounds for a case. Now let's read what happened here and why the actual lawsuit has been thrown out. So Pitchfork reports that Drake's federal lawsuit has officially been thrown out of court on October 9th. In the judge's ruling, Judge Jeanette A. Vargas stated that the song is a series of opinions, not defamatory allegations, and listeners were aware of such. The judge said, quote, although the accusations that plaintiff is a pedophile is certainly a serious one, the broader context of a heated rap battle with incendiary language and offensive accusations hurled by both participants would not incline the reasonable listener to believe that Not Like Us imparts verifiable facts about the plaintiff. In the lawsuit, Drake also claims the popularity of Not Like Us was to blame for the attempted break-ins in his Toronto residence and a security guard getting shot. Now, if this did happen, there was a guard shot outside of Drake's house, and Kendrick even said in one of the diss tracks, your house is going to get raided. So serious threats here. If I was suing, I would be suing for that track, by the way. That other diss track, The Story of Adidon. Sorry, that's not what it was called, boss. Meet the Grams. That's the track that I would have sued over. Meet the Grams was crazy. The artwork of Not Like Us depicts an aerial view of Drake's mansion from Google Maps and overlaid more than a dozen sex offender markers over his residence. But the judge claims that the sex offender markers were obviously exaggerated and doctored, And again, that no reasonable person would view the image and believe that, in fact, law enforcement had designated 13 residents in Drake's home as sex offenders. Drake's team has responded saying, "We intend to appeal today's ruling and we look forward to the Court of Appeals reviewing it." Now, definitely a super messy situation here. The reason this really caught my eye was not exactly because of a rap battle, because at this point I'm kind of bored of the whole rap beef. But this was interesting because it was Drake suing Universal. So this isn't a peer-to-peer lawsuit. This is a guy who's going up against the machine. Not only the machine, but the machine who made him. And we have to keep in mind when looking at what's happening in this situation, just how powerful that machine really is. So let's look at the balance of power for a second in terms of pulling strings. Drake himself is a person who has pretty substantial legal leverage over here in Canada. We talk about me being Canadian. We talk about the way things work over here. It is common knowledge that Drake has legal connections and beyond in the government of Canada and just across the country in general. He's been able to get people in the country who are not allowed to come in. He's got people freed out of jail. He's gotten people having, lighter sentences. This dude has major pull when it comes to making shit happen, and is even rapped about doing brunch with the judge that is doing cases for his guys. So he's tied in with the judges to the point where he can have them make the decision that he wants. Now think for a second, if Drake has that kind of power, who are the people who made Drake the guy he is today? Well, that's Universal Music. So if Drake has that kind of power in the legal system, picture, if you will, how much power Universal has. Just think about how much power Lucien Grange and all the executives at Universal Music have when it comes to bending the legal system and imposing their will. These are basically the only people in the whole system and the whole machine who have more power than the artists, who themselves are wielding massive amounts of power. So this lawsuit itself was incredibly ambitious for Drake to do, and is sort of reminiscent of the Michael Jackson versus Sony lawsuits. It's very reminiscent of that because we're looking at an artist at the peak of their powers, at the peak of their careers, but they're still not really able to combat that machine that made them. It doesn't matter how big you get, you can't really bite the hand that feeds you. So I was kind of hoping for Drake to win this, not because of the rap beef, because I do sort of agree with what they're saying about the Not Like Us song. Personally, for me, I agree with what the judge said. I think any person with a brain would know that that song is ridiculous and that these allegations are not accurate. I think that's pretty clear. Now, the other thing, too, is that I think it's sort of overestimated how much the general public really cares about this song, or really cares about the sentiment that's being shared, or even about this rap beef at all. I'm here to tell you, as somebody who is perpetually on the internet, but also likes to get out in the world and go touch grass, because I think that's very important. People in the real world, outside of this internet black hole that we all jump into with all these comments and everybody's opinions, people in the real world don't really care about the Drake and Kendrick beef. They don't know what Drake called Kendrick. They don't know he accused him of being a wife beater, a domestic accuser. They don't know that Kendrick called him a pedophile. And I would even go as far to say that most people who listen to the song Not Like Us in the club or whatever the case may be probably don't even really connect the two. And that might be a little bit of a stretch, but I really do feel like people don't listen to the lyrics in that way. It's always been said that people just listen to rap for the beat. They don't really pay attention. I think there may be a lot of that going on because we're still seeing both artists out in the world pretty much unaffected. We're seeing Kendrick Lamar currently touring South America. He's doing quite well. He just got off a big tour with SZA. He's doing fine. Nobody is caring what Drake said about him, all the insults and His son isn't his son. It's the general manager's son from TDE. He beats his wife. He's a bad father. He's a fraud. Nobody cares about that. The concerts are still selling out. Drake being accused of being a pedo, being accused of being a creep, a deadbeat dad, a bad role model. Just got back from his European tour. All the seats are sold out. So I understand that the people online, the hip hop community, the internet, the internet sleuths, the people who are really tapped into this, they care about this beef. They will use it against, whichever rapper they decide to. But I think like when you actually get out there and touch grass, you realize, oh wait, nobody really cares about this shit. People just want to hear these guys do what they're good at doing, and they don't really know the details. Especially when you look at Drake's audience, it's, hot girls in their 20s. It's dudes who are just chilling, going to the gym. These people don't give a shit about any of this. They don't care who's suing who. They don't give a goddamn. So in that regard, I do kind of agree with the judge in that sense of it. On the other hand, though, if somebody made a song calling me a pedo, I'm suing everybody. Like, I am suing. You will catch me in court morning, noon, and night, serving people. I would be suing everybody. And that's the one thing that when people react to this, he's a pussy, he shouldn't have sued, he's overreacting, just take the loss. I don't think you'd just take the loss if people called you a pedo. I think you'd probably be losing your fucking mind. I think any rational person who had these accusations leveraged against them would be losing their fucking mind. So that's really the way I view it. Does it make him look like a sore loser? He's soft, he's this and that. Yes, to an extent, but let's remember what the lawsuit is actually about. Those are fighting words. You don't just call somebody that and expect to get away with it. Especially an innocent person. An innocent person would be fighting to prove their innocence. We have a couple clips here speaking on the lawsuit. Let's look at some of the reactions. We have Charlemagne the God weighing in on this. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Shout out the chat. Candace says Drake won't have his past reputation ever again. Too many people with allegations who were never part of the equation. Desperate Times called for desperate measures. Honey says, agreed, the average person would definitely have a visceral response to being called a pedo. Yeah, that's the thing that I don't understand. And I think it is a case of certain people have different rules in this world. That's the one thing I've sort of wrapped my mind around in recent years and accepted. Some people, there's nothing fair about this world, especially when you're a public figure. Some people can get away with things that other people can't just because they're more well-liked or they're more likable. That's why you'll hear about a celebrity and they'll be like, hey man, this guy did a hate crime in 1985 and nobody's talking about it. That's because people have decided that that celebrity can get away with shit because they like the guy. Mark Wahlberg or whoever, you guys know what I'm talking about. But Drake is kind of in the opposite, where he could do some shit that somebody else would do, but he's not going to get away with it. Because we're not in a fair space. That's what I think we need to understand. Let's listen to Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club, their comments. They say Drake is a sore loser. Let's take a listen.
Yeah. Sit down over there in the corner and have a seat. To Drake.
Man, listen, Uphill, Orange Pill, Chemical Pill, Kendrick Lamar, and 5. All right. This lawsuit wasn't filed for any other reason other than Drake's feelings was hurt because Kendrick busted his ass in a rap battle. It's really that simple. And I'm shocked the lawsuit lasted a year and even got this far. This man got his ass busted in a good old-fashioned rap battle. Nothing more, nothing less. And we just have never seen how Drake reacts under real pressure. And you learn a lot more about people in defeat than you do in a win. And we learned that Drake is a sore loser. How do we act like, based off Drake's logic, he didn't defame Kendrick? This man said Kendrick beat his wife.
Beat his
this
woman.
man said Kendrick, one of Kendrick's children was by his best friend.
Oh,
like, why is that? Calling him short? Don't nobody ever think about the vertically challenged.
Yeah, but that's not defamation. What is Charlemagne even talking about? Calling somebody short is not defamation. This is ridiculous.
And a win. And we learned that Drake is a sore loser. Why do we act like, based off Drake's logic, he didn't defame Kendrick? This man said Kendrick beat his wife.
Beat his
this
woman.
man said Kendrick, one of Kendrick's children was by his best friend.
Oh,
like, why is that? Calling him short? Don't nobody ever think about the vertically challenged.
All right, now, come on now, because y'all did get, like, you see how you just did? You just levitated a little bit. All that
Because
more
don't nobody
energy.
ever think about that. Through all of the insults that was thrown, don't nobody ever bring up just calling this man short over and over the impact it might have had on him. But luckily, our height don't fight. That's why Kendrick busted Drake's ass. We would have been stopped talking about this ass kicking Drake. You keep reminding us of this ass kicking. You keep reminding us that Kendrick busted your ass.
How? He ain't even say nothing.
By the lawsuit. See, I look at it in a couple of ways. I look at it in a couple of ways. I'm talking about is the fact that Drake is biracial. So I'm looking at it from a black and white perspective, okay? His daddy's side engaged in a rap battle. His daddy said, go out there and fight. Go out there and fight. And then when Kendrick busted his ass, his mama's side said, oh, no, Aubrey, we going to the police. Okay? That's what happened.
That's perfect.
Bro, the American hip-hop culture, the people in it are so dumb. Like, it really stuns me how dumb some of these people are when you hear them speaking. The one thing Charlemagne did say, though, that makes sense is that, look, this lawsuit is sort of reminding people of the loss again. That makes a lot of sense, and I will give him the fact that Drake is a sore loser. I will give him that. I do think Drake is a sore loser. But guess what? If you're comfortable with losing, you're never going to be on top of the rap game or any game for 15, 20 years. You know, if you're not a sore loser, you're never going to get to the level that Drake is at now. I'll give him the fact that he's a sore loser, but I'm still not buying it, Charlemagne. If I made a video right now, a live stream saying Charlemagne the God is a pedophile, how much do you want to bet that he would sue me? I bet you my bottom dollar he would sue the fuck out of me and try to get my channel taken down. See this clip from Academics.
Let me tell you this, man. This was like hitting a buzzer beater. Everybody from the industry hit me today. And I'm going to be honest with you. I never knew how much the Drake lawsuit was impacting overall music business. I'm not only really talking about only UMG, but people who work at Sony, Warner. I could tell that this lawsuit that Drake filed was, you know, kind of ruffling some feathers. Regardless, it was basically like a buzzer beater. Niggas start hitting me from that I ain't talked to in years. They said we back on road. It's lit again. It's lit again. That's what they told me. I'm not going to cap with you. Let me tell you this, man.
Interesting. So a lot of people in the music business are very happy that this lawsuit is out too. So a little bit of context about that before we move on to the next story. The thing about this lawsuit is that it was for defamation, but we have to remember the bigger details as to why I'm even interested in this lawsuit is because it's an artist versus the system. And that's where I think we're not focusing on the right thing. It's not about a rap battle. The main issue in this lawsuit was not even the fact that the song had content that was defaming. It was more so about the fact that Universal Music used dishonest means to blow this song up and give it the perception that it was bigger than it was. Now, if this was actually proven in court, this would have been the beginning of the house of cards falling down for many different facets of the industry. We're talking record labels, management companies, but also just the perspective that people have of artists and their numbers. The reality of the music business that many people don't accept is that most of the hits that we hear, people pay to make those songs number one. They pay to get those views on YouTube. They pay to get those comments and those streams. If you put X amount of money behind a song, you can make it number one. That is the truth about the music business. Drake was using the Not Like Us situation to say, look, not only is this defaming me, they are hyperinflating this through payola, through fake streams, through fake bots, putting this at number one, hyping up the song as if it's the biggest thing in the world when really it's not. And if that could have been proven in court, it's over for a lot of these artists. It's over for a lot of these record labels, because then the whole business model starts to collapse. The whole business model starts to collapse, and then we see basically the destruction of the industry as we know it. Now, the industry needs this to keep going because they've lost enough already. When they lost most of their control to streaming services, they couldn't sell CDs anymore, so they had to find a way to maneuver within this space. So this fake streams, fake comments, inflating the popularity of an artist. You know, the artist has 700,000 followers on Instagram, but they go to do a concert, there's 12 people there. If this whole image, this whole part of the business fades away, a lot of people lose their footing and a lot of people lose a lot of money. So that was why I was interested in this, because I appreciate the fact that somebody was willing to put their name on the line to go against the bigger system in a situation that could actually help artists in the future while maybe hurting the corporate people at the top, the billionaires. It would be more helpful for the artists to actually have honest representation of where they're at. It wouldn't hurt them as much as it would hurt the billionaires. So that's really what I can say on this story. To the people defending Universal, to the people defending all of this, it's kind of weird to defend the billionaires at the top and not really side with the artists. That's kind of what I would say. But let me know what you guys think. I'm seeing some things in the chat. One comment says, didn't Drake benefit from the same system for his entire career? That is an incredible point. And I think it only adds to the fact that it's true, but it is pretty hypocritical if that's the case. I'll give you that. If Drake did use the payola, because I don't know if you guys remember in 2018 when Drake had the Spotify takeover. When that Scorpion album came out, I think he was even on like country playlists. Every playlist was Drake. You would scroll through the whole app, it was his app. So yeah, I would totally imagine that they used it for him. But it's kind of a compelling admission, though, to be like, not only am I accusing them of doing this, I actually did it with them. Now that's a compelling accusation. I'm seeing here, this is what they choose to do with their platform. Make a ridiculous battle with each other, calling it art and laughing to the bank while people react. Well, I couldn't agree with that more. Shout out to the chat tonight, man. You guys have had some great points, some great ideas.
I felt like that.
A whole lot else to cover. I mean, I wanted to come in strong with 2 topics today. I wanted to really just hit it out of the park. What is this? Sweetie is being accused by her best friend of being an international escort for hire? That's crazy. That's crazy as hell. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that, though. And that's another part of the business, by the way. A lot of these girls are glorified escorts. Hate to say it. A lot of these girls are glorified escorts. It's a disaster. So yeah, guys, look, I guess we'll jump on. Let me see this one. Let's watch one more. Don Lemon gets absolutely destroyed by 2 people on the street in Chicago when he attempts to tell them that crossing the border illegally isn't a crime. Bro, Don Lemon, you got to applaud his tenacity to just keep showing up. I have never seen somebody get owned repeatedly as many times as Don Lemon and just continue to get up and just go for it, man. You got to give him that. I mean, you can't give him accolades for being, a good reporter or smart or entertaining, but you can certainly applaud his drive to not be any of those things.
Okay, crossing the border illegally is not a crime?
No, it's not a criminal act. It's a
Okay.
misdemeanor.
So why are they being sent back and saying that they're breaking the law?
That's the point.
Okay, as somebody that actually...
We don't know if they're breaking the law because they won't tell. There's no due process. Where's the evidence? That's the whole point. And if they are breaking the law, most people will say, okay, then they need to go if they're criminals. But if they're not, why are they being rounded up and sent out? Especially when he promised to deport the criminals. And now he's not doing that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going...
Misdemeanor is not a crime. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So misdemeanor is not
It's
a
not
crime?
a criminal act, no. If you get charged with a misdemeanor, that's not a criminal
why
act.
get charged at all then, if it's not a criminal act?
Because we have different levels of crime. Everything is not the same.
So it is crime.
No,
It's just
we have
different
we
level.
have different levels of. No, I shouldn't say crime, but it's.
Oh, she got him. She just out-lemoned the lemon. 40 seconds in, she's got him recanting.
Charge at all then, if it's not a criminal act.
Because we have different levels of crime. Everything is not the same.
So it is crime.
No,
It's just
we have
different
we
level.
have different levels of. No, I shouldn't say crime, but it's not. You're not. It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
So it's breaking the law.
No.
What the fuck is he talking about?
It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
Bro, I could just replay this part all day. This is a CNN host thinking they're making sense. Just one more time.
Crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
CNN logic, everybody. You are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act. I mean, just because I'm behind the wheel with my foot on the gas and my hand on the steering wheel doesn't mean I'm driving. You know, I have a fork and I'm putting something in my mouth, but, you know, we're in a restaurant, but doesn't mean I'm eating. There's a huge difference. Don't you understand?
Different levels of. No, I shouldn't say crime, but it's not. You're not. It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
So it's breaking the law.
That's great.
No,
the law, but it's
you're
just
not breaking the
different
law.
level
A
of
misdemeanor is not
crime.
breaking the law.
No.
If you're speeding, drinking, get pulled over, DUI.
That's not a criminal act. Well, no.
It's a
If you're
misdemeanor.
speeding, is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor.
Right.
So it's still breaking the law.
Okay. Well, if you want to qualify that, we're doing semantics.
Because
But
why
what
would
I'm
you
saying,
get pulled over?
but what I'm trying to tell you is everything is not the same. It's all not one thing.
But is it the law?
What is it? The law that what?
The lemon law.
Is it a
Who said the lemon law in the chat?
law to come
Is
over
there a
legally?
law?
Is there a law?
There are rules that processes that you should follow. Yeah. So you're breaking rules. You're breaking the rules, but you're not necessarily breaking a law.
So what happens when you break the rules?
Then you suffer the consequences. But the consequences should not. Look, no one is saying no one should suffer the consequences. You guys are getting things mixed up.
Oh my God. He's just such a bad reporter. And look, it really pains me to actually criticize a fellow reporter like this. I do have to say, as a guy who's in the space of doing interviews, I know it's not an easy thing to do. But Don Lemon he's objectively bad at what he does. Again, I'm not trying to tear somebody else down in the field. He just doesn't make good points. He really doesn't. She did own him there. And yeah, I mean, we're going to talk more about, immigration and the whole ICE stuff tomorrow on the stream. That's going to be the stream tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe and come and join me tomorrow. We're going to break a lot of that down. We have a lot more clips, a lot more things to look into. It's just ridiculous. I wanted to look at one more thing that I saw earlier, too. I want to see what you guys think of this one. So Azealia Banks, I guess a rapper from the United States. I'm not really familiar with Azealia Banks' work, but I do believe she does some form of rap music. She's being heavily criticized because she just did a concert appearance in Tel Aviv yesterday, draped in the Israeli flag, coming out and singing Israel's praises in the midst of one of the most contentious situations happening on the world stage right now. Let's take a little look at this clip of Azealia Banks in Tel Aviv. We have two clips. So she walks on stage with the Israeli flag. I find it pretty bewildering that they're having concerts right now, by the way. Like, just in the midst of all this. We have a human, holocaust happening up the road. Basically an open morgue. You can see the smoke off in the distance, and we're having a concert right now? Is that what we're doing? We're having a rave? Just the burning smoke of women and children bellowing in the distance. You guys can't be fucking serious right now. What is this? What the fuck is this? There's a couple other clips too that I saw. I want to find the one. Let me see what we got. The one of where she talks about Netanyahu. Oh, she definitely got paid. I'm seeing in the chat she got paid. Bro, look at her shirt. She either got paid or she's trolling. She's got the Star of David necklace and a shirt written in Hebrew. What is this?
I'm okay.
Hold on a second. We'll turn it up so we can hear her. Cause I need to hear this. What is going on?
I'm okay. You can't if time is not proven that you can't cancel Azealia Banks. Every time you cancel me, I get stronger. And when you cancel something, you make it punk. So in my eyes, people like this is the most free PR that the Jews have ever gotten, and I love the Jews. And my love story with the Jews goes far back. So I'm kind of just like proud of all of my.
Okay. Is she medicated or something? Like, she seems to be in an altered state of some kind. I think she's probably just happy she has an audience for once. I mean, I've never seen her really do a show with anybody there. Maybe she has to go to Israel to get an audience. This is hilarious, bro. But it's so disgusting in a way, too. Let me see. There was the one. I want to see the interview. Let me see if I can just find the interview. Azealia Banks in Israel. I would have had this pulled if I expected to talk about it, by the way. I didn't expect to talk about it, so I would have had it ready. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Let me see. What's this? She was on an Israel podcast? Bro, what is going on right now? This is such propaganda. It's nuts.
You don't really experience it inside of New York City, and I mean, it's not something that's really talked. I mean, maybe it's something that's talked about amongst Jews, but it's never been like a thing.
No, we need the interview. Hang on, guys. Now I'm determined. Now I'm pissed. I need to see the clip where she was talking about Netanyahu. Why are they not showing the clips, too? Here we go. Super suspicious that I can't find these clips easily. By the way, this is the one.
I think he's really just an honest guy.
Netanyahu's an honest guy, is he?
But Netanyahu reminds me a lot of New Yorkers. I think he's really just an honest guy who just says it like it is, and I think that he's really focused. And I
hold on a second. Who is? We're not talking about the same, like, Prime Minister Netanyahu? Bibi Netanyahu from Israel? The leader of Israel? Is that maybe there's a different one. I think she has to be talking about a different person named Netanyahu, no?
But Netanyahu reminds me a lot of New Yorkers. I think he's really just an honest guy.
So she must not be talking about the Prime Minister then. He's an honest guy.
Who just says it like it is, and I think that he's really focused, and I admire that his mission is Israel, Israelis, and the Jews. Just, you know, I'm not trying to bash American politicians, but, you know, they can get really caught up in things that are just not even part of their, you know, you don't have Netanyahu, like, bashing gays or, like, you know, talking about race or women.
Talking about race! You don't see Netanyahu talking about race, Azealia Banks. Is there like a gun to her head behind the camera? Like, are they forcing her to say this?
You know, talking about race or women. You know, he's like, no, Israel, Israelis, and the Jews. And that's so,
what?
You know, that's really, it's appreciative.
Yeah.
Bro, what are we doing? What are we talking about, Azealia Banks? If there's anybody who's hyper-focused on race and ethnicity, it's most certainly Benjamin Netanyahu. Azealia Banks has posted on her social media, I guess, to respond to this too. She says, first off, my colors are blue and white. They could have used better photos and put the Star of David on there. Bro, she's not serious. She's trolling. I don't believe this at all. I don't believe this at all. There's no fucking way she's serious, dude. Not right now. There's no chance. She goes, Zionism is glorious. I'm reading from her Instagram. That pro-Palestine shit is another thrifty white hipster cause, and poor whites will never be in style. If you're going to make these placards, make me look good, baby. Adding an Israel flag and a USA flag. So obviously two options. Actually, probably just one option. She's probably getting paid substantially by the Israeli government and then also trolling. I have a feeling she's probably not in her right mind right now because she seems altered in that interview. So just imagine for a second if you're a troll. You're somebody who's known for trolling. You get a phone call from some country that wants you to come over. You're high. You know, you probably just had half a pill and you started drinking your second glass of Chardonnay. And this country calls and they want to offer you a bunch of money. Now, you're a rapper. We got to put ourselves in Azealia's shoes for a moment. I'm trying to close my eyes and mentally say, how would I perceive this if I was Azealia Banks? So I'm a struggling third-rate rapper. I have an alcohol and drug problem. I feel like her already, but we can continue. So third-rate rapper, strung out on drugs and alcohol. I get a phone call at 2 a.m. from a government official saying, hey, we'd love to have you in Israel. Not only would we love to have you, we're going to pay you a lot of money, and it's going to be great for your career because it's super controversial. Now, my mind is not firing properly from the drugs, and I'm also pretty desperate because my career's in the shitter. Yeah, I guess you're going to take it if you're a piece of shit with no morals. So it kind of is clicking now why she would do this. But this is just so wrong on so many different levels. It's sickening. And that, to me, it's also a very revealing thing. When you see the way that people act in a time of war, I think it's really, really telling as to where those people, those individuals, are at mentally. You have this type of stuff going on in your country right now, and you are comfortable enough to go to concerts and throw music festivals, and you're completely unbothered by the burning bodies off in the distance. That's demonic stuff. Now, I know I gave Michaela Peterson a hard time for talking about demonic energy in the beginning of this stream. Now, that's demonic. You're up the street from a genocide throwing a party, having a dance party. That is demonic behavior. There's really no way to describe it, and you don't even have to be religious, by the way. I mean, this is just common sense. So it is. It's quite shocking. But there's obviously an exchange of funds going on. There's a currency exchange happening. And it worked. Look, we're talking about her right now. I would have never talked about her on the show. So unbelievable the shit you see going on. But I would say this is probably just an attention grab. That's the first thing I would say. So what do you guys think, man? Again, make sure to leave your comments. Leave your comments. If you're not in the chat live, just let me know what you think down below. I'm reading you guys' comments, by the way. Her team is likely scrubbing the clips. Doesn't she just not care about anything but some money in her face? That seems to be the accurate description, yeah. She seems tired, apathetic, but not high energy. Yeah, something's going on there. Something's going on there. So I'm not going to figure it out tonight. I think we had a good stream. We covered Jordan Peterson's sudden health problems. Not sudden, but continued, I should say, health problems. We broke down exactly what's happening now with the Peterson family. And we broke down the Drake lawsuit versus Kendrick Lamar, as well as Azealia Banks. If you guys want to be in the know about everything happening in pop culture, entertainment, and beyond, make sure to subscribe right here on Cassius Morris Official. I'm live nearly every single day, and if I'm not live, we're still posting content. Show some love, and if you want to support the channel, click the join button down below to become a member for early access to stream topics. You guys will be able to send me different things to react to, actually be part of these live streams and putting them together. You'll get the chance to ask questions to the guests that I have on the platform, of which there are many coming again soon. And you'll also have access to an entire back catalog of members-only videos. So make sure to go ahead and take a look at that. And Candace, Zeus, Brianna, Honey Badger, Joshua, everybody in the chat that I'm seeing, Priscilla, huge shout out to you guys, to my new people. Huge shout out to you guys. Thank you for watching. Sending big love.